Hello friends, it's Lisa, and welcome to what is going to be part 2 of me tier ranking all of the books that I read in 2022. So I filmed the first part back in June of 2022. I talked about all of the books that I had read in the first half of the year, so now it's time for me to tier rank everything I read in the second half of the year. So I will have part 1 of this little tier ranking series linked below if you want to see what I read in the first half of the year and where I ranked them. But this is part 2, and I do have a few more books to talk about in this part than I did in the first part. I think I ranked like 40 books in part 1. I have like 60 something books to rank in this one, so I'm just gonna try and go through these books kind of quickly. I'm probably not gonna spend much time discussing what the books are about, if I even give a description, so we're just gonna spend time discussing my thoughts. So yeah, let's just get into the tier ranking. Alright, so let's go over the tiers. They are the exact same tier names that I had in part 1. So we have the top tier, which is new favorites, just a new all-time favorite, not just of the year, just like a new favorite book. Then I have the I really like this tier, then the it's fine tier, not good, not bad, just it's fine. Then I have the didn't like this tier, and then the bottom tier is boo tomato. I'm not the most creative with my tier names. We'll work on that if I do future tier ranking videos. But first I'm going to do the, I think 4 books that I read in the first half of the year, but I didn't rank them because they were a part of secret TBR videos. So I didn't want to spoil my thoughts on those vlogs in the tier ranking video, but I will do those now. So the first one I think was The Cruel Prince that I didn't rank. I think I'm gonna put it in the it's fine tier. I actually was like pleasantly surprised by this book. I will have any vlog that I read any of these books in linked below, but I will have the vlog where I read this linked below. I think it was my book talk vlog. I was pleasantly surprised. I really was not expecting to like it. I put off reading this book for so many years. I just had no interest in it for a really long time, but I did end up enjoying it, and I definitely want to continue on with the series, but it wasn't anything that I was like obsessed with. But I did find it really interesting. I liked the characters. I liked the world. I really liked all of the political intrigue that was going on in this series. I feel like when I hear about this series, it's almost always about like the romance between Jude and Cardan, but that's just not even like the main focus of the series at all. But I did like Jude and Cardan. However, there was a lot more to it than that I did enjoy, so I think I'm gonna put it in it's fine. It's not anything that I was obsessed with, like I said, but I did enjoy it. I'm trying to remember what the other... Oh, From Blood and Ash was one. That's going in boo tomato. From Blood and Ash, I did not like this book. I actually like kind of hated this book, and it was definitely like my worst book of 2022. I really just didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the characters. I did not like the romance. The world building, what world building? Nothing made any sense. It was just so not great. I just did not like it. I didn't like the writing. There were just so many pieces of it that just did not work for me at all. So definitely in the boo tomato tier. It's definitely my worst book of the year that I read. Oh, I think The Love Hypothesis might have been one that I didn't rank because that was also in the book talk vlog. And I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. I know this book is not for everyone. However, I had a good time. I think because of all of the various reviews I heard about this book, I kind of knew what to expect going into it, so I was able to have a good time. Again, do I think it's the best book, the best romance book that I've ever read? No. But was it fun? Yeah. And also I think part of it too is I am not a Star Wars girly. I don't have that association with these characters, even though they literally like on the cover it looks like people just drew the actors who are in Star Wars. So it's like I understand that is definitely like what these characters are based off of, but I don't really care about Star Wars. I've never seen any Star Wars movies. Sorry. So I don't have that association, so I wasn't like upset by that. It didn't bother me, and I was able to kind of picture the characters a little bit differently in my head than the people in Star Wars. Anyway, I thought it was fun. Again, not like the best book I've ever read, but a great time. And then what was the final one? Why can't I remember anything? Oh, you know what it was? It was The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. So this was a book that I read for my 5-star predictions vlogs, or one of my 5-star predictions vlogs, and I think I'm gonna put this in the didn't like this tier. I keep trying so hard to be a thriller girly. I keep saying girly, I'm sorry. I'm gonna try not to do that the whole video, but I really want to like thrillers and I just don't have very good luck with them. In this book, you're following this girl named Jess, I think, and she goes to Paris to go and stay with her brother. She's running from something from her past, and she goes to try and stay with him for a bit, but he's not there. He's missing. It's very suspicious, and she knows that that's not something that he would do. He wouldn't just get up and leave. So she is trying to figure out what happened to her brother the whole book. This book is pretty unmemorable. I don't really remember a lot of what happens in the middle of it. I remember some of the twists and turns and some of the ways like the reveals were done I did enjoy, but I feel like a majority of the book I was pretty bored and underwhelmed, and there were so many characters that I kept getting confused, and it just did not have the impact on me that I want thrillers to have, so didn't love it. Definitely not 5 stars. Okay, but that's it. I think that was from the first half of the year that I didn't rank. So now we can just get into everything else. So the first book here that I see is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. And I think I'm torn between putting it in the I really like this tier, but I would put it before the Love Hypothesis or a new favorite. Because it made it into the honorable mentions in my favorite of the year video. It wasn't 5 stars for me, but it was almost. See, I make these tiers and I make them more complicated for myself. I wish there was something in the middle. I think I'm going to put this in the I really like this tier, but I'm going to put it above the Love Hypothesis just so we know that it's close to being a new favorite. But I did really enjoy it. Like I said, I mentioned it in the honorable mentions of my favorites of 2022 video. Definitely a very emotional and impactful read, and I think I mention this every time I talk about this book, but it's written in verse, and the few authors and the few books that I've read written in verse I've really enjoyed, so it's definitely something that I want to read more of, explore more authors who write in that style, because I really enjoy it. And I also really am excited to read more from Jason Reynolds. I have looked at some of his backlist, and I definitely want to go and read some of his other books because I really liked this one. Next we have China Rich Girlfriend by Kevin Kwan. This is the second book? Yes, the second book in the Crazy Rich Asians trilogy. And I really enjoyed this trilogy as a whole. I thought it was really fun, but I do think that the second book was my least favorite. I'm gonna put this in the it's fine tier because I still had a good time with it. I think it was just where the book was going and what it was leading up to. I just found it not as exciting or interesting as the first and third books in the series. And there's certain characters that you follow, especially in the first book, Rachel and Nick, and also Astrid. We see a lot of them in the first book, and I feel like in the second book we stray a little bit further away from following them, so didn't love that as well, but still a very fun series, just like so over the top and funny and entertaining to read. Next we have a lot of Shadowhunter books all in a row, so we can just go through these very quickly. The first one is the Bane Chronicles, which is the first like short story collection out of all of the Shadowhunter books. I'm gonna put this in its fine. It's definitely my least favorite out of the short story collections. I still think there were really good short stories in here and there were good moments. There just were some that I didn't like. I think that's the thing with short stories. It's hard for me to think about them as a whole because there's always some that I like and some that I don't. But I do love the Shadowhunter world, so like even just like reading short stories that I'm not even necessarily enjoying just because it's following characters that I love or it's in that world, I do still enjoy them just a little bit. So I'm putting it in, it's fine. It's probably a bit generous, but it's fine. Okay, next we have Clockwork Princess and Clockwork Prince, and we're just gonna, well, okay, they're not a new favorite, but I'm putting them in the top tier because I have read them before, so they're not new favorites, but they are definitely some all-time favorite books for me. I absolutely love The Infernal Devices. I don't know if it's my favorite series in the Shadowhunter world. It's so hard for me to choose. I just know that the Mortal Instruments are not my favorite series, and that's all I really know. I feel like whatever series I'm rereading at the moment, that's my favorite series. So that's where I stand on that. But I love The Infernal Devices. I love the characters so much. Clockwork Princess is one of my favorite Shadowhunter books in general. It's definitely in like the top 3. I just love it so much. It causes so much pain, but I love it so much. And then we have Lady Midnight, which I read recently. This was my last read of 2022 actually. And again, a reread, but I'm gonna put it in the new favorite tier because I also love this book and this series so much. All right, next we have A Christmas Surprise by Emily Mardot. This is a historical romance novella set over the Christmas holiday. The main character's father throws a Christmas party every single year, and now that she's come of age, he kind of is hoping that she will use that as an opportunity to potentially meet someone, potentially meet the man that she could marry, but she's not super interested in the idea, but it is a masquerade ball, and she ends up kind of crossing paths with someone she doesn't recognize because they're wearing a mask, and that's it because it's a novella. It's very short. There's not a whole lot to it. I think I'm gonna put this in it's fine. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I was just like, did I even really like it that much? I don't know. I think it being a novella kind of made me not love it as much. It felt like a lot of things were really rushed. I think if it was maybe like a 200-page novella, I would have liked it a lot more. I actually think I'm gonna move this into the I didn't like this tier. I don't think it was terrible. I think I'm gonna put it in front of The Paris Apartments so that it's closer to the it's fine tier because I think I gave it 3 stars, but I contemplated giving it 2.5, but it was fine for what I wanted it for. I read it during 24-hour readathon. I just wanted a quick little romance novella and it did the job. So I'm gonna put it in the I didn't like this tier, but it wasn't awful. Next we have Emma by Jane Austen. I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. I definitely didn't love this as much as Pride and Prejudice, which is like my #1 fave. I love Pride and Prejudice so much, but I still really, really enjoyed it. I mean, it's Jane Austen. You know it's gonna be good. All right, next, another Shadowhunter book, Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, another short story collection. This one I did like more than the Bane Chronicles, but still think it's just fine. I'm gonna put it ahead of the Bane Chronicles, but still just very fine. This one is kind of hard to talk about without getting into spoilers, but the Shadowhunter Academy is where young Shadowhunters can go to train and learn how to become a better Shadowhunter. We're following mainly one character while they're at the academy, but we do get some short stories following other characters in the world in the past who have attended the academy. Yeah, it's fun. Again, love the Shadowhunter world, so any little pieces that I can get from it, I will enjoy for the most part. Okay, next we have Truly Devious, which is a reread for me. I reread this book this year to read the whole trilogy. Why don't we just do the whole trilogy all at once? Let's just move them all together. So the thing is, I think I gave all of the books in this trilogy like 3 and 4 stars, but it's definitely not a series that I love. It was fun to read. I read it again during a 24-hour readathon. Your girl just loves 24-hour readathons. So it was fun to read in that kind of way and read them very quickly and back to back like that, but it's definitely not a series that I have thought about since finishing it, and it hasn't been like that long since I read it. I think I'm gonna put them all in the It's Fine tier, even though I definitely liked Truly Devious and The Hand on the Wall more than The Vanishing Stair, so I will put those ahead of The Vanishing Stair, but the whole series just as a whole, definitely fine. It was a fun time to read in the moment, but definitely not something that I think is going to be super memorable for me. Kind of one of those series where it's fun in the moment, but you just don't think about it a lot. So yeah, definitely a fine series. Then we have Rich People Problems by Kevin Kwan. This is the 3rd book in the Crazy Rich Asians series, and this one I'm going to put in the I really like this tier. I feel like the things that I loved from the first book, the characters and just kind of the actual story and the drama and the entertainment part of it, I feel like what I liked from the first book kind of came back into this 3rd book. We saw a little bit more of the characters that I loved from the first one, and I just enjoyed, I feel like, the story a little bit more in this one. It was still like really funny and entertaining, but it also had a mix of more emotional and sad moments as well. So I feel like it made me feel a lot of emotions, which is what I want out of a book. I want to feel a lot of things. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one, and such a great conclusion to the trilogy. Next we have A Woman Is No Man by Itaf Brum. I read this for the 20-something book club. I will have their live show linked below because I feel like they kind of summed up a lot of my thoughts. I think I gave this like 3 or 4 stars. I'm gonna put it in the It's Fine tier. It definitely had some like significant and emotional moments, but I also just didn't love the writing style. I feel like this book definitely had some moments that were very repetitive, and there were some confusing moments as well. There were things that I like had to look at reviews on Goodreads to figure out exactly what the author was trying to do or what exactly happened. I feel like things were not always clear because of the way they were written. So I definitely liked some parts of it. It did have some impactful and emotional moments, but I also feel like some of that impact got lost with the writing and just me not meshing with the writing style. The next book we have is House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig, and I was pleasantly surprised by this book. I had heard, I feel like, a lot about this book when it had first come out, but then it was kind of one that I didn't really hear a lot of people talking about after its release, but I really enjoyed it. It's a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, but it's a pretty dark story, and I feel like for a YA it kind of got a lot darker than I expected. So yeah, it was like this dark and twisty and kind of messed up story, and the atmosphere was really great. It was set, I think, at this castle on the sea, and there were a lot of characters, and there was kind of just a mystery going on as to why all of these girls, all of these sisters are kind of cursed and why all of them keep dying essentially. So it was really, really fun. Well, not fun. I wouldn't say it was fun. It was very dark and very twisted, but I did enjoy it. So I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. Okay, next we have Watch Us Rise by Renee Watson and Ellen Hagen, and this is a book that I think I would have enjoyed a lot more when I was more so in the target demographic, the target audience for this book. This is a book that really discusses feminism and these 2 girls who are trying to start this club. I think it's called Write Like a Girl, and they're just discussing their experiences being a woman, the good things, the bad things, the frustrating things. I think there were a lot of good messages in this book. I think it just felt a bit surface level. I think this would be a good introduction to these kind of ideas, which makes sense because it is for a YA audience, for a younger audience. So I'm gonna put this in It's Fine. Okay, next we have I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is Jeanette McCurdy's memoir discussing her experiences in the entertainment industry and also her kind of relationship with her mother and the kind of abuse that she faced from both the entertainment industry and her mother. And it's a very emotional read, and I also really loved it. It's a new favorite for sure. I think about this book constantly. I think about what Jeanette McCurdy experienced all the time. It just makes me so emotional. Yeah, especially as someone like who grew up watching iCarly, it's kind of weird to think about like what she was going through behind the scenes and no one had any idea. I guess not weird to think that, it's more just like sad. It makes me feel so sad for her, but I'm so glad she's doing well now, and I'm glad that she kind of shared this story. It's very emotional and very hard to read at times, but I think so important that she shared it. Okay, next we have Beach Read, which I also read for that book talk video, and thank God I did, because I loved this book so much. It's going in a new favorite, you already know. I feel like I have not shut up about this book. Definitely a new favorite romance. I love the way that Emily Henry balanced the more emotional and impactful parts of this book, the discussions on grief and loss and what these characters were experiencing, with the more lighthearted moments, the fun romance, as well as just like the banter between Gus and January, the two main characters. It was top tier banter. It was so good. I instantly was like so invested in their relationship, like this first time that they talked to each other, just because the banter was so good. Yeah, I love Beach Read. I feel like I've talked about it endlessly since I read it, I think in June or July of last year, so you already know, because I never shut up about it. Okay, next we have The Henna Wars by Adiba Jagadar, and I really liked this YA contemporary. I feel like I read this quite a while ago and that I kind of forget a lot of what happened. I know it's following these two girls that both start these henna businesses, and for one of the girls it is a part of her culture and for the other it is not. So there's kind of this discussion on cultural appreciation versus appropriation, and also just like discussing the racism that these characters have faced while also having these warring henna businesses, so they kind of are rivals, but then maybe they start developing feelings for each other. It was really cute. I also think it tackled a lot of really great discussions. I think I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. Like I was saying, I definitely don't remember this as fully as I did when I first read it, just because it's been some time since I've read it, but I do think it's a great YA read with a lot of really great discussions, while also having a very cute romance and a really unique premise, so definitely would recommend, definitely enjoyed it. Okay, the next book is The Care and Feeding of Waspish Widows by Olivia Waite. This is the second book in a historical romance series. I read the first one earlier in 2022 and really enjoyed it, but the sequel I enjoyed. I definitely didn't like it as much. I honestly don't, again, remember a ton of my thoughts on this. I remember enjoying it for the most part, but it just wasn't anything that I was obsessed with. I'm gonna put it in It's Fine, because I remember thinking it was fine. It wasn't anything that I really loved, but it was enjoyable to read. All right, next we have The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake, and I will say I did read the like self-published version of this. I know this has been picked up and traditionally published. I think all of Olivia Blake's like backlisted titles are being republished to be traditionally published, and I think that that's so great. I think it's so exciting. I know that the traditionally published version of The Atlas Six though is a little bit different. I read the original one and I liked it, but I didn't love it. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. I'm again gonna put this in It's Fine, but I'm gonna put it up towards the front. It definitely wasn't awful. I do think it's a really interesting premise and world with really interesting characters. Definitely characters that are very flawed and very interesting to follow. It wasn't anything that I was obsessed with again, but I definitely want to continue on with the series, and I know that I have to like almost reread the Atlas Six. I have to reread the newer edition of it to continue on with the series because of the changes that were made, and I don't mind that idea, so I think that that's a sign that I enjoyed it enough that I don't mind having to do that. Then we have The Hawthorne Legacy. I'll put again, the Inheritance Games and the Hawthorne Legacy together. These are the first and second books in the Inheritance Games trilogy. I have yet to read the third one. I'm waiting patiently for my Libby app to have it. That's how I read the first two. And to me, this series is the most mediocre, very fine series I have ever read. It doesn't do anything that angers me or upsets me. It's entertaining enough, but it doesn't do anything that I'm like obsessed with and love. Like, the characters are all fine. The premise is fine. You're probably wondering, if it's just fine, why did you read the second one? Great question. But fine isn't necessarily bad. Like, I did enjoy them enough to want to continue on with the series. I just don't feel the obsession that a lot of people do with this series. I also feel like the whole premise is that there's these 4 grandsons and their grandfather has passed away, and Avery is potentially going to inherit everything, and she has no idea why. She has never met this man before. She doesn't know why she was chosen to inherit everything, but there's a lot of games and tricks and things going on, and a lot of people who obviously want to get to Avery because she's going to inherit all of this money. But there are these 4 brothers, these 4 grandsons who Avery is like around the same age of, and there's like a love triangle thing going on with 2 of them. I just don't really care about that. That's like a big motivation for people reading the series, and I just don't care. And then there's the other brother who's like the youngest, and he's like a little bit more involved than the eldest brother, Nash, who's barely in these books, but he's my favorite character, and I feel like I have an unpopular opinion there. I feel like no one talks about Nash. But I love him. I love his yeehaw vibe. I love how sweet and caring he is. And like, he's like a highlight of the book in this series for me, which is unfortunate because like I said, he's barely in it. But yeah, both of these I'm gonna put in the it's fine tier. I don't think that they're anything special, but like they're entertaining enough. They are the most fine books I've ever read. They are made for the it's fine tier. Okay, next we have Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson. This is like a sapphic romance about these 2 girls that meet at this music festival and get swept up in this like competition there, and it's like a romance between them, and it takes place over this one weekend. And it was fun. I think I gave it 4 stars, but it's not anything super memorable. I definitely don't love it as much as Leah Johnson's debut, You Should See Me in a Crown, so I think I'm also gonna put this in it's fine, but definitely like enjoyable. I still liked it. It just isn't a book that I think about a lot. I honestly forgot that I read this, but it did have its cute moments, and I did like the music festival setting. Okay, next we have Nimona by N.D. Stevenson, and this is gonna go in the new favorite tier. I absolutely love this graphic novel. It's about Nimona becoming a sidekick to the supervillain in this like world, and perhaps that the villain is not as bad as everyone thinks. Perhaps he's trying to actually save people from the heroes, and it just has the most endearing characters. It's so funny, but also like emotional and heartfelt, and there's a great plot, and it's a book that I have wanted to read for quite a while. I think I've put it on like multiple TBRs for like readathons. It just hasn't happened. I've always like changed my TBRs to not end up reading it. So I'm glad that I finally read it this year and that I loved it so much. I just can't believe I put it off for so long. Next we have the Tea Dragon Tapestry by Kay O'Neill. I really love the Tea Dragon series. They're just like very like wholesome, cozy graphic novels. I feel like if I am ever in need of a pick-me-up, I'm going to kind of turn to the series because it's just like, it doesn't require a whole lot of thought because they are like children's middle grade graphic novels, but they're still like so heartwarming and have such great messages, and the characters and the art itself are just so, it's just so great. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in the new favorite tier. I don't love the Tea Dragon books as much as I love some of the other books in the top tier here, but I do really love them. I think I gave all of them 5 stars. I just think that they are so beautiful with such beautiful messages and characters, and the art is stunning, and yeah, I just absolutely love the series. Next we have From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. This is the first Mariana Zapata romance I've read. It's a like rivals to lovers, the slowest of slow burn romances, and I loved it. So I'm gonna put this, and I really like this. I'm gonna put it towards the front as well. I really loved the characters. I loved the progression of their relationship because it is a rivals to lovers, and it felt really gradual in a way that made sense. And I loved seeing them like get to know each other and seeing them start to see different sides of each other, and especially because we're in Jasmine's perspective in this whole book, who is the main character, when we see Lukov through her eyes and the changes she starts to have and feel towards him, seeing his like softer side after bickering and arguing with him for years and years. It just was so fun to read. I like enemies to lovers, but I typically love enemies to lovers in like a fantasy setting, but this is enemies to lovers in a contemporary setting that I actually did really enjoy. Next we have Felix Ever After, and that is going also into the new favorite tier. I absolutely love this book. I think it's such a great and important, emotional and funny YA contemporary. I loved all of the characters. I loved how real they felt, how they felt like real teenagers, and the discussions that they would have, and I really love Felix and and his friends Ezra and Leah, and just like their dynamic and all of their friendships. And I just thought it was really great. All right, next we have Beasts of Prey by Ayana Gray. This showed up in the honorable mentions in my favorites of 2022 video. So I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. This was a really, really fun YA fantasy. I feel like it was pretty unique as far as YA fantasies go. Sometimes I feel like that age category in that genre can tend to fall into a similar pattern, similar tropes. Sometimes it feels like I'm just reading the same books over and over again, but I do feel like with Beasts of Prey it was a lot more unique. It just had great characters. The romance itself I also really enjoyed. Sometimes YA romances, I love them, but sometimes I don't love them as much, or they just feel like they were added for the sake of having a romance in it, but there wasn't really much to it. But I did like the romance that developed in this book. The world itself and the creatures and everything were really interesting, so I really enjoyed it. I definitely need to read the second book that came out, I think last year as well. Another one I'm waiting for one of my library apps to get it, because that's how I read the first one. But yeah, really enjoyed it and definitely would recommend if you're in the mood to read a YA fantasy. Okay, next we have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, and I feel like, again, if you've watched any of my videos in the past few months, you would know I absolutely love this book. I haven't shut up about it, so definitely a new favorite. I keep describing it this way because that's what it truly felt like to me. It just felt like a warm hug. It was so cozy. The atmosphere was so cozy and magical and wonderful, and there was like a found family trope with a grumpy sunshine romance and such like diverse and lovable, wonderful characters. I loved all of the side characters that lived in the nowhere house where our main character Mika Moon travels to train these young 3 witches. And also like the 3 young girls were really fun and had like such distinct personalities. It just, everything about it was so good. There was a golden retriever. Like, what else could you want? There's literally nothing. It checks all the boxes. Okay, next we have She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quinlan, and I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. This is another one that I remember really enjoying, but I don't really remember a whole lot about it. I know, again, it's kind of like a rivals, enemies to lovers kind of story. I know it starts off with one of the girls hitting the other girl's car in the parking lot at school. So now they have this arrangement where the other girl will pick the other girl up and they'll drive to school together, and they kind of are forced to kind of spend more time with each other. And I don't really remember a whole lot of the plot, but I remember really enjoying it. It definitely had some very like cheesy rom-com moments, but it was also very cute, and I would love to see this adapted. I have seen Sadie Sink be fan casted as like the main girl in this book too many times for me to not want that to actually happen. All right, next we have Olive by Emma Gannon, and I really didn't enjoy this book. I'm gonna put this in the Boo Tomato tier. It definitely isn't as bad as From Blood and Ash, but I still didn't love it. I didn't like any of the characters. The characters themselves are supposed to be this like really close-knit group of friends, and they all are kind of awful to each other, and it was just really frustrating to read. And I feel like the whole messaging of wanting to be child-free by choice and wanting a different future than what your other friends want or what people expect you to want, it's an important conversation, but I feel like just was not done well in this book. I think this is a type of book that would have done better as a non-fiction of Emma Gannon, like explaining her perspective and her experiences being child-free by choice, because I believe Emma Gannon is child-free by choice. I believe that that's coming from a personal experience and thought from her. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like just the whole message of this book kind of got lost by the end of this book, and it was just like a frustrating read because these characters were all so awful. It also just like, I don't think was well written. There were a lot of like inconsistencies in the plot. It was just like a weird reading experience. I don't know. I wanted to read a book that was about like being lost in your young adulthood, and this was one that caught my eye because of the pretty bright yellow cover. However, just didn't work for me. So definitely need to read some other books about that, but this was not the one. All right, next we have People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I feel like if I could put this in a tier between It's Fine and I Really Like This, that's where it would go. But I think I'm gonna put this in the I Really Like This tier. I did enjoy it. It's definitely not, out of her adult romances, it's not my favorite, but I did enjoy it for the most part. I really liked Alex, who was like the best friend and like the love interest in this book. These are following, ooh, do I remember her name? Poppy, right? Yeah, Poppy and Alex. That sounds right. But they used to be like really good close friends, and they used to go on these vacations every summer, and then something occurred which stopped them from going on these vacations and like talking to each other all the time. And then years later they decide to go on one last vacation to kind of rekindle this friendship. It was fun. It definitely had some really sweet moments, but it just wasn't I think, my favorite out of Emily Henry's books, but I still liked it. Next we have Fire by Kristen Kishore. This is the sequel to Graceling. This is the second book in that series, but we're following different characters, and this is set like 50 years maybe-ish before the events of Graceling, but I really enjoyed it. I'm again gonna put this in the I really like this tier. I just really love this series. I think it's so magical and fun, and there's great characters, such like fun romances, while also having a lot of kind of intense moments as well. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the most intense series, but there's definitely a lot of like political intrigue, I guess, in this series. And yeah, I'm excited to continue on with the rest of the books in the series because I've really liked the first two. Next we have Once Upon a K-Prom by Kat Cho, and unfortunately I'm gonna put this in the I didn't like this tier. It, I think, was one that partially just read a bit too young for me, which is fair because it is a young adult book. I am not in the young adult age range anymore, so that partially is on me, but I also just didn't love the kind of characters in this book. Like, I just didn't really connect with them. The main character kind of had not like other girls energy. I feel like I've kind of talked about this every time I've talked about this book, but it just gave me like kind of cringy 2012 Wattpad fanfic vibes. Like, I don't know, it was just like, it didn't really work for me. It made me feel like I was like 12 again reading those types of fan fictions, and it just was a bit cringe for me. I just didn't love it. I definitely think there's an audience for it. It just wasn't me. Next we have On These Black Sands by Vanessa Rasanen. I also have the sequel here, From These Dark Depths. This is a fantasy romance that I read on Kindle Unlimited, and it's about pirates and about this girl who like sneaks off onto a pirate ship. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot of like political aspects to this and a lot of really great characters. I really enjoyed the series so far. It's not like the best thing I've ever read, but it was really fun to read. I definitely preferred the first book. I think like I enjoyed it for the most part, and then there was like a twist at the end that I kind of saw coming, and I also just didn't know how I felt about it. That kind of made it not a book that I absolutely loved, but for the most part I enjoyed it. And then the sequel, even though we started focusing on one of the side characters that I really love, it wasn't as good to me as the first one, so I'm gonna put the sequel in It's Fine, but definitely just like a fun, quick read, fantasy romance with pirates. It was just like, it was a fun read. Then we have The Ex-Hex, and I also read The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. Once again, let's just group them together. So these are like magical rom-coms. They're following these different witches in this town where there's a bit of magic. The first one is kind of like a second chance romance. The second one is more of like an enemies to lovers kind of vibe. And I enjoyed both of them. I didn't absolutely love them. I think I'm gonna again put them both in the It's Fine tier, but they were enjoyable enough reads, and I think there's gonna be a third book in the series. I definitely want to pick it up. It was just like a fun, silly, goofy time, the perfect kind of romance to read in the October spooky season. Next, I did a reread of Gilded by Marissa Meyer, and if you didn't know, Marissa Meyer is one of my favorite authors, so I really enjoyed this. I feel like this time around I liked it more in certain aspects, but didn't love it as much as I did the first time, so I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. It's definitely not my favorite from Marissa Meyer, but I still enjoyed it. And I will say there are some twists and things that happen at the end of this book that still have me shocked. It's a lot. Then we have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O, and this is one that is another one that I feel like is kind of unmemorable for me. I remember liking some of the like mythology and like folklore that was included in this, and there were some aspects that I loved, but it did get a bit repetitive, and I don't know, it just wasn't necessarily my favorite, but I didn't hate it. I also did like the way it wrapped up. I think I'm also gonna put this in It's Fine. Then we have The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. This is the kind of sequel, but not really like the companion to The Spanish Love Deception, which I loved when I read that a couple years ago. The level of like cringe that was in The Spanish Love Deception definitely was still in The American Roommate Experiment. Like, I understand why people don't like The Spanish Love Deception. I think it was, again, just a book that I read at the exactly right time that I needed it, so it was just perfect for what I wanted. However, like, I understand why people don't like it and some of the flaws and some of the critiques of it, and The American Roommate Experiment definitely had those things as well. Plus, I didn't feel as connected to the romance as I did with The Spanish Love Deception. I still liked it. I think I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. It's definitely another one that would have gone in between I really like this and It's Fine, but I did overall enjoy it. It definitely had some like cheesy moments, and then it was like almost too cheesy for me who loves cheesy moments in books. But overall, I did have a good time with it. I just didn't, I think, get connected as much with the romance as I would have wanted to, like I did with The Spanish Love Deception. Okay, next I have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, and I think the more I think about this book, the more I didn't love it. I think I gave it 3 stars. I probably should lower my rating to a 2. I'm gonna put this in the I didn't like this tier. This is like a friends to lovers kind of story where these 2 characters like grew up seeing each other every summer at their lake houses, and then something clearly happened when they were younger that they don't see each other for 10 years, and we're following like them in the present day where they kind of reunite, and we get flashbacks to when they were younger. And I liked the writing and I liked the setting. However, I didn't really like the plot or the characters. So I definitely feel like characters and the plot are things that generally are more important to me in order for me to enjoy a book, but I would be interested in reading more from this author if it just had different characters and a different plot. This book felt almost like a YA novel because we spent so much time in flashback chapters when they were younger, but then we would flash forward to the present day and all of a sudden a like spicy moment would be happening, and it's like I was just reading about them as children 5 seconds ago, and I feel like most of the book was flashbacks. So it was just like a weird tone to the book as well. So definitely not awful, and I would be willing to give this author another chance, but just this book itself was not my favorite. Next we have 9 Lives by Peter Swanson, another thriller that I didn't enjoy. I think I might put this in the Boo Tomato tier. There was not really a whole lot that I liked about it. It's about these people that all get this list. Their names are all on it and that's it. It's just their names listed out. All of a sudden throughout the book, the people on this list start getting like taken out. I don't know, the whole book was just very like mundane and boring. You just see them throughout their day-to-day lives, and none of them I feel like took it seriously that like these people were being targeted. I don't know, it just had such an interesting premise, but then the execution was not interesting at all, and it was just very underwhelming, very boring. I feel like also like the way everything wrapped up and the twist and the reveals and everything at the end were really predictable, because throughout the book the author was kind of hinting at what was gonna happen and what was going to come and what the reveal was gonna be. So overall was just not worth it in the end to get through the boring stuff. Like the reveals itself was also not worth it. Then we have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, which I think I'm going to put at the beginning again of the I really like this tier. I absolutely love this romance. I gave it 4.5 stars, but I think upon reread I could end up bumping it to a 5. I really did love it. Again, another one that balanced the funny romantic moments and like rom-com vibes of the book with the discussion of grief and loss, I think really well. At first, like throughout the book, I wasn't really sure how I felt about it, but I feel like the way everything came together in the end, it did end up working. So I really enjoyed it, loved the characters, loved the romance, and it also made me sob, so loved it. Okay, and then we have Cursed by Marissa Meyer, which is the sequel to Gilded, and this one I'm gonna put in the new favorite tier. I definitely preferred Cursed to Gilded. I think the sequel had everything that I liked about Gilded, which was like the characters and the setting and the writing. It had all of that, plus the plot had a little bit more. There was a little bit more going on, so I was just a little bit more engaged throughout the book. There was just a little bit more intrigue, I think, for me. And yeah, so it took everything that I liked about Gilded and kind of improved upon it. Again, also made me cry, so there's that. All right, next we have Sourceline, which is by Sylvia Douillet. This is a graphic novel following Sourceline, who starts attending this like magic school and then starts to like discover these weird like mysteries and weird things going on to the people who are also attending the school. This one was fine. I found it like oddly a little confusing to follow for a graphic novel. I don't know. I think there were just moments where I had to like go back and like reread something that had happened and then continue on. And I don't know, I think like the art style made it a little bit confusing. I think also it might just be because this is a translated novel that maybe the translation, like it just didn't completely match up in the same way that it was written in its original language. That could be it too. I think I'm going to put it in the It's Fine tier. It definitely is something that I would maybe recommend if you're looking for a like middle grade spooky graphic novel, but it just isn't like my favorite graphic novel that I've ever read. I think there are other graphic novels out there that have these kind of vibes and a story and characters that I just connected with a little bit more, but still good, still enjoyable. Next we have The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Leese. This is a holiday novella that I read towards the end of the year and I absolutely loved it. I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. I'm again gonna put it towards towards the beginning. I really did enjoy it. I loved the kind of grumpy sunshine vibe and trope in this book. Also, the two main characters work at a bookstore around the holiday season, and they have this like competition to see who can bring in the most money to try and save the bookstore, but then this romance develops between them, and it's just so sweet and so fun to read, and I didn't expect to get so connected to the story and the characters in such a short amount of pages, because I think this novella is like 200 pages long, so definitely excited to read more from this author. Really enjoyed this. Okay, I'm also starting to fight the light disappearing and my camera battery's constantly dying, so we're just gonna try and breeze through these last few books here. So, Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I liked it. I think there were aspects of it that I liked more than The Love Hypothesis, but I also feel like the ending of this book, it got into like action movie territory, and it was so bizarre and such a weird shift, but I did enjoy it for the most part. And like I said, I think there were aspects of it that I liked more than The Love Hypothesis. But yeah, I also went into it kind of knowing after reading The Love Hypothesis what to expect from the writing and the characters and everything. I think I had the right expectations to enjoy it, but yeah, both of those books are just, like I've said, not the best romance books, but also still so fun to read. All right, next we have The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. I'm also gonna put this in the I really like this tier. This is a like Carrie retelling, reimagining, but the main character is actually Black. So there's like that discussion on racism within the town, and that plays such a huge role in why this particular character is targeted, and so much of the history of the town plays into like the prom night and everything. So it was a really fun read, and as someone who like kind of knew the Carrie story but didn't know it so well, I thought Tiffany D. Jackson I think did a really good job of taking certain things from Carrie and making them her own, making them unique, and also like the whole prom night itself, I thought she did a really good job of kind of making that part her own. So I just really enjoyed it. Perhaps if you really like Carrie, I don't know if you would like this that much because I think it is very similar, but I still really enjoyed it. Next we have Gleanings by Neil Shusterman. This is a short story collection from the Arc of a Scythe world and series, and I do really love that series. However, the short story collection just wasn't for me. I think if this had come out like a couple of years ago, I perhaps might have been a bit more into it. I think my obsession with the Scythe trilogy, like we've just kind of moved past that a bit. The last one came out in 2019, so it's just not a series that I'm as obsessed with anymore. Plus, I feel like there were a lot of short stories in here that just were boring or just didn't work for me, or we were following characters that I had no prior knowledge to, so I just didn't feel super invested. And there was also one short story in here that was so bizarre. If you have read this, the one with the dogs, what was all of that about? I'm not sure. I'm gonna put this in the didn't like this tier. Then we have Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and surprisingly, I'm going to put this in the I really like this tier. I didn't expect to love this book as much as I did. I definitely gave it a 4-star, but it was like a low 4-star, and I think I just wasn't expecting to like it because I hadn't heard amazing reviews of it, like early reviews, and the fact that it was following like this tennis player, and when we saw Carrie Soto's character briefly in Malibu Rising, I was like, I don't know if I want to read a whole book about this character, but she definitely is a flawed, unlikable character, but also the way Taylor Jenkins Reid still makes you care for her and still root for her in her book and makes her like very complex. I just really enjoyed it. I think Taylor Jenkins Reid is such a talented writer. I had a good time with it. It also made me sob, but didn't anticipate sobbing over a book about tennis, so I think I have to give her credit for that. Next, Five Survive by Holly Jackson. I am going to put this in the I really like this tier, but I'm going to put it towards the front. I really enjoyed this. This is Holly Jackson's newest like YA thriller, and it's the first one I think she's released outside of the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, which I love that series. So I was nervous going into this one that I wasn't going to love it as much, but I was wrong. It was so good. Very suspenseful, very stressful, so many things that I didn't see coming. Again, I feel like Holly Jackson does a lot of really great reveals that I can't always anticipate, and even if I guess like a piece of it, I never know the full story. So I just loved it. I thought it was so well done, well paced. The characters were all really interesting, whether I liked them or not. They added to the kind of drama and suspense of the book. Yeah, I definitely think like there is an aspect of her books that are a bit unrealistic, but I also think that they're really entertaining and really well done thrillers. Next we have Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison, which was a recent read, and this one I'm gonna put in It's Fine. It's like a friends to lovers fake dating on a Christmas tree farm kind of vibe. Very cozy. I did really like the atmosphere. I also really liked a lot of the side characters, which I know the kind of sequels in the series follow the side characters. So even though I think I gave this one like 3 stars, I'm interested in reading the rest of the books in the series. There were parts of the romance and everything that I did like about this book. However, the third act conflict was so dumb. I really hated did it. It just was so forced. I could understand aspects of it, but just the way the third act conflict happened, it was just so annoying to read because it was just so forced. It was clearly put in there just for the sake of having a third act conflict, and I just didn't enjoy it. So there were parts I did like, especially in the first half of the book, but again, the third act conflict kind of ruined it for me, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. It definitely was fine, but like I said, I do kind of want to check out the sequels in the series. All right, next we have The Diviners and Layer of Dreams. I've already moved the 2 books together because I'm just going to talk about them at the same time. Both of these books I really enjoyed. The series is really fun so far. I'm going to put both of them in the I really like this tier. I'm going to put Layer of Dreams in front of The Diviners because I definitely preferred Layer of Dreams to the first book in the series. But yeah, I love the characters. I love the whole like magic system in this world. Also like the kind of villain that's sort of in the background because each book kind of follows its own mystery and its own story, but there is one villain consistently throughout the whole series, and to see that and get more information about that has been really fun to read. I know a lot of people don't love the way the series concludes, but so far it's been a really strong start with the first 2 books. And I just really love the characters, especially Henry and Ling in Layer of Dreams. I absolutely loved following them in that book. Okay, next we have City of Lost Souls and City of Heavenly Fire, which are the 5th and 6th books in the Mortal Instruments series, the final books in the series. And these are definitely my favorites out of the Mortal Instruments, I think. City of Lost Souls I'm going to put in the I really like this tier, and City of Heavenly Fire I'm going to put in the new favorite tier. It's again not a new favorite, but it definitely is my favorite out of the original series. I feel like City of Lost Souls is when a lot of the political aspects of the second half of the series really start to pick up, and we start to see a little bit more of the villain in the second half of the series. And City of Heavenly Fire I think is just such a great conclusion to the series. There's definitely things I could be like nitpicky about. There are things that I understand why people don't like them. However, for me, I just really like the way everything concludes. It just makes me very satisfied with how it all ends. And I also think it's interesting the way she sets up like things that are going to happen in future books that she writes in like the Dark Artifices trilogy and everything. So I think it's a great conclusion. I think it's one of the strongest books in the Mortal Instruments series. And then we have the final book, which is funny that we're ending on this note. We have The Click by Lacey Harrison, which I didn't actually rate when I read it because this was a reread of me reading a book from my childhood. It was a prompt for the Magical Readathon to reread a childhood favorite, and I didn't rate it because I really didn't know how to do that because yes, I did love this series when I was younger and it did have that nostalgia, and like reading this book now, there were so many scenes from this book that I remembered so distinctly from when I read it the first time. However, it does not hold up well. It's not a book or series that I would recommend to young readers now. Definitely not the best messages in the book. The characters are not great. They're not very nice to each other. The things that they do and the way that they act is just not great. I'm gonna put this in the didn't like this tier, even though it was fun to reread it and revisit a childhood favorite. It definitely is not a good book. It definitely like cringy writing and just not great messages. But yeah, that is it for my tier ranking of everything that I read in 2022, part 2. Again, like I said, I will have part 1 linked below, but I will just quickly scroll through and show you what everything ended up looking like, where I placed everything. Definitely let me know down below if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. I would love to know. But yeah, looking at this tier ranking, definitely had a lot of things in the 2 middle tiers, the I really like this and it's fine tier. I definitely feel like even though I had some standouts from 2022, it definitely was a pretty average reading year for me, but I definitely had a lot of things in the I really like this tier, so I think that's good. I'm very happy about that. But that is going to be it for my tier ranking of all of my reads from 2022. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.